We are approaching the return of E3 this year after it was canceled last year due to the pandemic. And while it is still a virtual event, kind of the usual selection of vendors have lined up to attend, and the usual selection of people that do not attend are still not there. That includes some big names like Sony is not doing anything with E3 specifically. EA, Activision, they'll be doing their own things, having their own reveals around this time. But we do have a number of kind of significant players that are still participating in E3, like Square Enix, Ubisoft, and Microsoft. Microsoft has kind of made E3 its own thing now. There used to be this kind of three-way rivalry between Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo, and then people would debate who won E3. But with Sony bowing out in recent years and Nintendo having a kind of slimmed down treehouse presence usually, or just debuting a direct or something, it's kind of been Microsoft's show. They love taking advantage of the main stage to make a host of big announcements as they've done in past years, and they will kind of have things to themselves this time around too, even if it's a virtual stage, not a real one. Microsoft has a lot to prove in the sense that they are starting off this console generation very strong, a lot stronger than the Xbox One generation. The Series X is a very powerful machine. It's selling extremely well. It is sold out almost everywhere, and whoever's winning between Microsoft and Sony, it's probably only because they can produce more units, and the Series X is in high demand. Microsoft has also been on a hot streak of acquiring developers and buying, just flat out buying enormous studios like Bethesda. And we have heard that they are going to have a joint E3 conference between Microsoft and Bethesda. That may sound odd, but that's because you have to plan these things a long, long time in advance, and they were obviously originally going to have separate shows before this acquisition. Microsoft is in an interesting spot, however, because as much as they've done making progress in terms of a quality console and sought after kind of IPs to come, they haven't really actually kind of delivered on a lot of that promise yet. And now players are going to be tuning in to see what they actually have to show. A few big things to watch here would be what they show from Halo Infinite and what they announce about that. Halo Infinite is slated to release this fall, famously after a year delay when it was supposed to come out last fall alongside the Series X, but a poor showing ahead of that had them delay it an entire year. So whatever they show this time around has to be very eye-catching, like have none of the craziness and memes that came with the debut last time around. So we will see what they show from that. Probably an extended gameplay demo, and we may hear something about when a multiplayer beta test is going to happen for that. I would expect that to probably be sometime pretty soon, and to have them have a few of those. Halo multiplayer will be free to play, but I would still expect them to have kind of early tests so people can kind of kick the tires of the new game. And Infinite looks to be one of the biggest releases of the fall, and is definitely Microsoft's biggest release of the fall, barring any surprises. The second most important game is probably what they show from Starfield. Starfield has been this long, secretive Bethesda game that predates the Microsoft and Bethesda arrangement, but all indications are now that Microsoft owns Bethesda, it will be a Xbox/PC exclusive and probably not coming to PlayStation. We may learn more about that at the show here, but we have seen nothing at all from Starfield. After all this time, we have seen the title card, and that is about it. This continues the tradition of Bethesda kind of really not wanting to show anything until things are almost ready. There was an early rumor that this was going to be a surprise debut for this year, for 2021. And that does not seem likely to happen. A few different sources have kind of shot that idea down, but it may arrive in 2022 and be Microsoft's big release for that year. People are expecting some sort of big space RPG, something on the scale of Bethesda's other huge series like Fallout and Elder Scrolls. I'm not really expecting anything from Elder Scrolls itself here, even though that has also been announced because Bethesda said they weren't really going to be diving into that until Starfield. But Starfield is a big question mark based on the fact that we know nothing about it now, and yet this does seem like the time to kind of start talking about it. After that, it's kind of a selection of these big announced games that Microsoft still has not really shown more than maybe a cinematic trailer or two for. There is the new Perfect Dark game that's coming out. There's a new Fable game. There's a new Forza. There is Avowed from Obsidian. All of these games are really big titles and have the potential to be kind of game-changing, huge, must-haves for Xbox in a way that we haven't seen from them in a long time. But what we really need to see from Microsoft is some sort of semblance of a timeline as to like when they think these things are coming out. Because Sony has gotten themselves on a really kind of solid schedule where they have been releasing either moderate or big games every quarter, every 6 months, definitely every year. But we don't want to enter another period like the Xbox One where they just had so few kind of big name exclusives for the entire generation. So even if schedules change, it would be nice to have some sort of vague sense of roadmap of like, okay, is Fable 5 years away or is Fable 1.5 years away? Like things of that nature, so we at least kind of know what we're talking about here. What we don't want is Microsoft to get in a situation like we've seen many developers get in where they show a cinematic or a title card and then don't talk about a game for years and years and years, and everyone always just wonders where it is. So I think transparency would be important here. I would like to know which of these games are further along than others. And then finally, it wouldn't be a Microsoft E3 show if they didn't have some sort of surprise. It could be a game we're not expecting or haven't heard anything about, a new Gears of War entry, something like that. The return of some other lost franchise that we can't predict right now. It could be a big kind of service announcement, some huge acquisition maybe. They bought another studio for their collection, or they're expanding Game Pass in some sort of crazy way. Game Pass on the Switch, your imagination can run wild with that. But these are all kind of the reasons that Microsoft is looking like the biggest show to keep an eye on, and I'm expecting them to have a good show, and they have the past few years especially. It's just a matter of learning when they are going to actually start delivering on the stuff that they're showing and what form that will take when they do. So we will have more coverage of that when that arrives in June, and there will be plenty to talk about then. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.